right. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Aquarium of the Pacific's virtual Urban Ocean Festival. Very delighted to be here with my good friend and colleague, Chef Ken Stewart, Executive Chef of Premier Catering at the Aquarium of the Pacific. That's a mouthful, Chef. That's usually the kind of title we have for academics.
Right.
So the reason that we are doing this seafood demo is twofold, right? So seafood is among the healthiest proteins on the planet for humans and for the environment. So it has a lot of unique nutrients, including long-chain omega-3 fatty acids that have been proven to show benefits for heart and brain health. There's also a lot of emerging evidence showing it might help to boost immunity. From a planetary ecosystem benefit, there are actually two ways that we need to start looking at sustainable seafood. There's the one that people are very familiar with, which tends to be the localized impacts. And how can we source responsible seafood in a way that minimizes those impacts that you're probably familiar with, like bycatch, like maybe use of antibiotics in farms, escapes, things of that nature. But we also need to take a step back and look at it from a broader perspective. So as I just mentioned, it's among the healthiest proteins on the planet. We do need to eat more for human health, but also for environmental health. It can really go a long way to help support a more stable and resilient food supply in the changing climate. Seafood can be produced using fewer land and water resources, and it can also be produced with fewer greenhouse gas emissions. It's a very efficient and healthy source of protein. So today, we're going to try to tackle kind of both of those pieces of the sustainable seafood puzzle. So for one, Chef's going to share this delicious recipe that we're hoping will entice you to eat more seafood. And then two, then I will go through later in this broadcast and kind of highlight some examples of how you can source that seafood with greater assurances that it is in fact produced responsibly and coming from responsible fisheries and farms. So Chef, I'm going to turn it over to you so you can share what you're going to cook for us today.
All right, thank you. So today we're going to do salmon cake. This could be something that would be in your common household pantry. If not, this is available to pick up at your local grocers. And we thank them again for being on that front line of the groceries, supplying stuff for us. We appreciate all their efforts in that. Today I'm using a couple of brands from Kirkland. There is a Product of USA right here you can see. So we're using some good ingredients that's available in the USA. Trader Joe's has a great can of salmon too. So to jump right in the recipe, I pre-mixed a couple of things because I know we're going to be moving along. We're going to take the salmon from the can, make sure that you drain it. Also look for something that will say boneless and skinless. This will make it a easier way for you to assemble this together without having to finger through all the bones and stuff like that. So I'm taking the aioli, which is basically the mayonnaise and the mustard that we have on the recipe there. We're going to mix that in a little bit. I've also pre-sauteed.
While you're doing that, can you just explain what kind of? So you mentioned that they could use canned tuna. What else could they use?
Salmon. They can use salmon, canned tuna.
Or canned salmon. Sorry.
Yeah. If they've roasted any fish, any firm fish that they've even roasted the night before, and they wanted to do something different with it, they could break that up too. So you could do a halibut that's already cooked. Tuna from a can is wonderful. The salmon's wonderful too. It's a variety of things they could use, yeah. So we're going to put that in there. We're going to season that a little bit with salt and pepper. You can use Old Bay seasoning here, or there's a seafood seasoning blend you can use. We're going to go ahead and mix that together. You want it, it's almost like making tuna salad. You want to get a consistency together that just holds it tight enough that makes it pliable to roll in your flour and your panko. I'm going to add some more here.
So really what you're making, Chef, is a really fancy fish stick.
Basically. Yeah, in the form of a patty.
If we're being honest.
Yeah, exactly. So, and this is a great recipe. I mean, you could do many things with it. You could do larger patties for a dinner size. You could do medium or small for a lunch size. You could even go smaller and do sliders with the kids if the kids would be into it.
Is this something that you could turn into like a burger patty almost?
Yeah.
Like a salmon burger?
Yeah, this particular recipe is more for sauteing or frying in a pan with the panko to give a crispy crust. If you wanted to do that on the grill, you could make a meringue out of egg whites and use that more so than the mayonnaise or the aioli mixture. So when it's cooking on a grill, it's holding it tight and it won't crumble and go through the grill and fall apart like that. So then I'm going to take a scoop, or you can use any household measuring cup depending upon how big you'd like your patties to be. I'm just going to take a scoop here. We're going to form that into a patty. We're going to dredge that in some flour, just like this. Then we're going to drop that in our egg wash quickly. We're going to lay that in our panko. And as I do a couple of these, I'm just going to turn on my skillet here to get it nice and warm. I'll make a few of these, Kim. And then I'll
Chef, if they don't have the panko, what else could they use?
You could use any breadcrumb, really. You could use an Italian breadcrumb, would be fine. You could use croutons if you wanted to blend them up, would be fine.
And what would be the minimum ingredients? So if you go to our website, aquariumpacific.org, you can find on our Urban Ocean virtual page the recipe. But of those ingredients, if I only had 4 ingredients, what could I use to put these patties together at minimum?
Well, you need something to bond it together. So a regular mayonnaise or even just tartar sauce, if you have it, would add that flavor to it. You definitely want salt and pepper involved. And if you want garlic or onion, I would say pick one of those 2 things.
Okay. And then the fish, of course.
Yeah. So as the magic of Hollywood, don't look at my mess. We're going to go ahead and move these over to the skillet.
Great. And while Chef's doing that, as I mentioned, I will go through some tips for sourcing responsible seafood. So as I mentioned, there's the 2 ways to look at it. There's the one way to look at it as the broader picture of responsible seafood's role in a more sustainable and resilient food supply. But then, we want to make sure that as we're eating more seafood for the planet, we're doing so in a manner that is maximizing benefits at the local level for our local ecosystems and communities as well, while minimizing the risks. And I just lost some of my visuals. Here we go. So when you're at the grocery store, there's a few things that you can look for. One, Chef just showed you a couple labels. So product of the U.S. is always a good thing to look for. So research has shown that fisheries and farms that come from countries that have the capacity for effective management tend to be of less risk. They tend to perform better in terms of providing quality food while minimizing risks to the environment. The U.S. is highly regarded for its success in having science-based management of its fisheries and marine resources. So look for the Made in the U.S. label. Another thing that you can look for that is readily available, it's important to understand, and Chef, can you see this? I can't, my window's a little weird, but it's important to understand that, a lot of grocery stores have responsible sourcing strategies in place for their seafood as part of their broader corporate social responsibility strategies. And what a lot of them are doing is they are working with labels. So they work with larger groups. There's one called the Consortium for Sustainable Seafood Solutions.
Right. Kim, can you raise that a little bit so I can see that? Just raise it a little bit higher for me, yeah, so I can see everyone. There you go.
All right.
Perfect. Yeah, now we can.
So there's a number of certifications that are options available for seafood that you could find these labels, and I'll show you in a minute on the actual products. But you have, the Aquaculture Stewardship Council, Best Aquaculture Practices, Marine Stewardship Council. This is for wild; these 2 are for farmed. And then if you're also concerned about the social element of the seafood supply chain, which is another key element of all of this, there's the Fair Trade Certified. Fair Trade for seafood is a relatively new venture, but they are working in collaboration with these environmental certifications so that we can have that strong social and environmental benefit associated with these options. And then Monterey Bay Aquarium Seafood Watch isn't technically a certification, but you can occasionally find their label. And of course, they have their app that you could use. So, those are other options. So look for the, product of the US label, or if you can't find that, look for these certification labels. And that could just help you provide greater assurances that you are selecting from a responsible farm or fishery that is doing its part to maximize benefits while minimizing the risks to those local environments.
Fantastic. So I turned the heat down as we were talking so we wouldn't burn them. So we've got our salmon cakes in a pan here. If you can see that, you kind of want to get them to a golden brown like that. So I've removed that from the heat. We're actually going to plate that. Anything that you have in your home or common greens, or today we have some fresh arugula. You can put that on your plate. A couple of tomatoes for color. Also, I'm going to do a quick spicy remoulade. You could make it spicy. You could do it Cajun style with Cajun seasoning. You could use a regular tartar sauce for kids. So I'm just going to take a little Thousand Island dressing. A lot of households have that. I'm going to add a little cayenne pepper to that. We're just going to stir that up. I like to just dollop some on a plate here.
And Chef, you mentioned you could also use like a tartar sauce, or
Yeah.
there are a number of options,
or for
right?
kids, if you straight up ketchup would be great. Give that a little smear there. I'm going to come over here and grab our salmon cakes there. Nice and crispy from that panko. You can garnish that with parsley or this is some fresh cilantro that I have there. If you have a lemon wheel, you could do that as well. I've got a little raspberry vinaigrette just for your little salad on the side.
Now, Chef's just getting fancy.
We're so used to it. That's what we do. There
Those
you go.
fancy fish
So
sticks.
a couple of salmon cakes there. From Cafe Scuba Aquarium Kitchen to your kitchen.
And that was minimal time, right? How long did that take you?
I would say it's about 20 minutes.
So one of the things about seafood that I find fascinating is, as a society in the US, we tend to shy away from seafood because we're not as familiar with it as some of the other proteins like chicken or beef.
Yeah.
But the reality is, Chef, correct me if I'm wrong, seafood can be prepared relatively quickly, very easily. You can get it in a lot of convenient forms, including canned, frozen, and fresh.
Yes.
Right? And the canned and frozen versions can be just as good as the fresh if they're prepared well, right?
Absolutely. And I think growing up as a kid too, not understanding seafood, now loving it, I think it's the way it's prepared. So if you really want to take that adventure and take the time, anything fresh, simple ingredients, olive oil, lemon juice, salt and pepper, you can't go wrong. You could pan fry it, you could roast it, you could grill it.
That's the beauty of great fish, right?
Yes.
Is that the flavors are there. You just need a little bit.
Bring out its own natural flavor. Yeah.
Yeah. Great. Well, I'm just kind of sad that I'm not able to try them, but
we'll have to send this over to you.
Oh, that looks amazing. So, Chef just demonstrated that you can prepare some healthy seafood for your family using some pretty basic ingredients from your pantry. And again, so you're eating something that's good for you, good for the planet. Again, you can make sure that you're sourcing those with greater assurances that it has minimal impact on the local environments by choosing products of the US. And then also looking maybe for some of those certification labels. And going back to the product of the US, I would encourage you, when we talk about conservation and implementing sustainability, oftentimes it is groups like ours, it's conservation organizations that tend to get a lot of the credit. And we do work a lot behind the scenes to try to design more sustainable strategies and figure out better ways forward. But ultimately, at the end of the day, it is the fishermen and the farmers who implement these changes, right? So as an organization coming up with these strategies, there's this invisible line. And at that point, it has to be applied, and we can't do that. During this time of COVID, we're all struggling. But if you have the means and you have the ability, if you go to seafoodforthefuture.org, or you could go to the Aquarium's, the Urban Ocean page, and we have a blog post that can highlight some ways that you can buy direct from local fishermen and farmers. Some of those options are you can have the products shipped direct to your door, which who doesn't love that? Or there are some markets that are still following social distancing, for wearing your mask there, but they're still open and you could buy direct from the fishermen. So if you go to seafoodforthefuture.org, I have my handy little visuals here. Again, Chef, make sure it's in the screen.
There
You
you
see
go.
it?
Yep.
All
I've got
right,
mine right here too.
seafoodforthefuture.org. You can also learn more about responsible seafood, and you could go to our Ocean to Table series, which is a link on the left-hand sidebar when you go to the website for more recipes and some videos that highlight some responsible marine aquaculture farmers here in the U.S.
Let's hold that up one more time, Kim.
The joys of remote broadcasting. Can you see that?
Perfect. There you go.
Yep, yeah, all right. Seafoodforthefuture.org.
Perfect.
And then I would also encourage you, if you're really interested in learning more about the nutritional elements of seafood, so seafoodnutrition.org is a good partner of ours. We're big fans. So they have a lot of scientific information on the health benefits of seafood. And they also have a lot of cooking tips for using frozen seafood or canned seafood, and also recipes for kids. So they have a little campaign called Little Seafoodies, which is a lot of fun. And then there's also a social media hashtag that I recommend you check out called Eat Seafood America. Again, this is just a way to link to some of the local fishermen and farmers who are working hard on the front lines to bring you a healthy and responsible source of seafood. And you can learn more about how you can buy direct from them.
Awesome.
So, all right. Well, Chef, thank you so much. I'm really bummed that I don't get to try it. I'm, drooling a little bit over here, but I can't wait to be back at the aquarium with you guys so I can give that a try.
Hopefully soon. We will all be together soon again.
So thank you to all of you for joining us. Again, happy Urban Ocean Day remotely. We can't wait to have you guys back at the aquarium, and we hope everybody stays safe, stays healthy, stays well. Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye.
Kim.